What's going on, everybody? RJ Ochoa here from SB Nation's bloggingtheboys.com. Hope all is well wherever you are. We hope you're happy, safe, healthy, and that you're excited to talk about it. The Dallas Cowboys schedule is officially here. I wanted to take some time and make sure I understood everything about it before I put together a video because I love the schedule. I know that there's a lot of people who feel like, who cares? We already know who the teams are playing, blah, blah, blah. I like putting together the puzzle. I like looking at advantages. I like looking at disadvantages. I like looking at certain things. I like looking at the broadcast elements. It all fascinates me. It's why I'm such a big football fan, obviously why I'm such a big Dallas Cowboys fan. So we're here today to discuss the Dallas Cowboys schedule in super minute detail fashion, whatever you want to call it. If you haven't yet, please consider subscribing here to the Blog on the Boys YouTube channel, the most subscribed to individual team channel across all the SB Nation universe. If you want to follow me on Twitter, Instagram, or Threads, that would be cool. You can do so at RJ Ochoa or on TikTok at rj.ochoa. By the way, I will mention this again later so you don't forget on the way out, but make sure to check out bloggingtheboys.com all the time. But later this week, I need some time because they take a little bit of effort. I'm not a Photoshop wizard by any stretch, but we will have player-specific schedule wallpapers for your phone or your tablet or whatever the case may be. I'll put all those in one article at bloggingtheboys.com. It will come out over the weekend. I don't know if it'll be Saturday or Sunday, but make sure to check out the site. I'll also tweet the link out. I'll share it on Threads and everywhere I can. I'll blast it so that you don't miss it. I know that wallpapers are a big deal to a lot of people. I tweeted some out actually right before I started recording this on Thursday morning. Those are in the Central time zone. I'll put Eastern time zone. I'll put Pacific. I'll do what I can to get as many as possible. If you need a specific time zone that I somehow miss, you know where to find me. You know how to DM me. You can always leave a comment down below, and I'll do my best to get to those also, by the way. All right, without further ado, let's get to it. The 2024 Dallas Cowboys schedule. Let's just kind of roll through this, and then we'll kind of identify things that I find to be interesting here. We already knew, obviously, the last video that we recorded for you here on the channel, the Cowboys visiting the Cleveland Browns to start in week 1. That is an afternoon kick, America's game of the week on Fox. Tom Brady, Kevin Burkhardt, Aaron Andrews, Tom Rinaldi going to be awesome. The home opener for the Cowboys in week 2 against the New Orleans Saints. That's also on Fox. Remains to be seen if that's a Brady game, obviously. And I hate to call them Brady games because Kevin Burkhardt, friend of the show, Kevin Burkhardt, is such a talented play-by-play man, both in football and an incredible baseball voice as well. The whole crew I find to be amazing. In fact, Brady is the unproven one of it. Aaron Andrews is awesome, obviously. Also a friend of the show, Aaron Andrews. So we got to get Tom Rinaldi on. So we get the whole crew here, basically. And, of course, Tom Brady himself. But that remains to be seen. Either way, I mentioned I would get to the details in a little bit. Okay, let's just kind of fly through. Then we'll do this. The Ravens in week 3, early game for the Cowboys against the Ravens. That's also an afternoon kick. And then this was really surprising. We'll come back here. Like I said, Thursday Night Football, the final week of September, obviously on Amazon Prime, on the road against the New York Giants, who for some reason debuted the worst looking throwback uniforms I've ever seen right before I started recording this as well. Then the Cowboys are on Sunday Night Football, the first week of October, on the 6th against the Pittsburgh Steelers. If you are considering a road trip, I went to Pittsburgh 8 years ago when the Cowboys were there, and it was one of the greatest sports trips I've ever taken. First weekend in October, the weather is going to be amazing. So definitely kind of a peak sports trip hanging in the balance here if you're a Cowboys fan. The Cowboys return home on Sunday, the 13th of October, to take on the Detroit Lions. That's an afternoon kick. Then they're on bye. That's the same bye week, by the way, for the Cowboys, week 7, just like it was last year. They come out of that for another Sunday night game, this one on the road as well against the San Francisco 49ers. That's October the 27th. Then the Cowboys on November the 3rd head to Atlanta to take on the Falcons. That's a noon kick, one of 4 the Cowboys have. Then this one was interesting. And like I said, we'll come back. If it isn't obvious, I have a lot of thoughts. On November the 10th, the Cowboys will host the Philadelphia Eagles in an afternoon kickoff, which is not foreign to this rivalry, but on CBS. And then the Cowboys will be on Monday Night Football for the first time this season, hosting the Houston Texans. That's Monday, November the 18th. A little bit after the World Series will come to an end. So obviously the Houston Astros will have won their 3rd title in franchise history by that point in time. Then the Cowboys will visit the Washington Commanders on Sunday, November 24th, also a noon kick. And that's pretty common because that is the week before Thanksgiving. So generally the Cowboys do play a road game in that spot. But the NFL either has them kick at noon or in the afternoon so they can get back in town, obviously, for the beginning of their short week turnaround to play on Thanksgiving Day. This year, the Cowboys will host the New York Giants on Turkey Day itself. Looking forward to that. Then they'll get a nice little long break. Like I said, we'll come back here. I promised, I don't know what I was thinking with my words. I knew I would get into this. But anyway, then the Cowboys will be on Monday Night Football for a second time, hosting the Cincinnati Bengals, their first December game on the 9th. That's a 7:15 kick. We're talking all Central times, by the way, if that isn't obvious. Then the Cowboys will visit the Carolina Panthers, one of two road games in December for them. On the 15th, that's a noon kick. Then they will return home for another nationally televised game, Sunday Night Football against the Bucs. That one was a bit surprising to me. That's on December 22nd. Then on December 29th, that says Saturday. That's incorrect. I need to update that graphic. Don't believe me here. Apologies, but I'm too deep into it. That should be Sunday, December the 9th. Ignore it. Sunday, December the 20th, not the 9th, the Sunday, December 29th. Goodness gracious. It's a lot of work creating all these graphics, so I apologize. But Sunday, December 29th, that was the reason, if you're curious. And I'll just let you know how the sausage gets made around here. This is a similar graphic to what we used last year. And in week 17 of last year, the Cowboys did play on a Saturday. That was at home against the Detroit Lions. That was the crazy ending game, obviously. So that's why it says Saturday. Again, that's my bad. Sorry, everybody. But that's an afternoon game on Fox. And then the final game of the regular season will take place on January 4th or 5th. That is a Saturday or Sunday. The time, the network, all that is TBD, because the NFL waits to schedule the most significant games, obviously, in the most significant time slots. Okay, so my bad on the Eagles game in week 17 and the graphic being wrong. I cannot believe it. But you know what? I actually messed this up. I left Monday, where the Lions game is as well. Shout out to Danny Phantom, who corrected me. But anyway, deep thoughts on this. We already knew the Browns. Let's go in chronological order as best as we can. Cowboys hosting the Saints in their home opener. Cool, whatever. It's strange that it's a noon kickoff for the Cowboys in their home opener. The Cowboys have not had a noon kickoff for a home opener. Talking about the home opener here. They have not had a noon kickoff for that since 2020. The last time the Cowboys had their first game of the season at AT&T Stadium in the noon slot was actually against the Atlanta Falcons, not the drubbing that they put on them a few years ago. Before that, it was the watermelon kick game. It was Mike McCarthy against Dan Quinn. The Cowboys were in danger of falling to 0-2, and they had that miraculous comeback. There was all that stuff about when they went for two, which they were correct on, and then the watermelon kick, blah, blah, blah. But so another noon kick for the Cowboys to start off the party at home in 2024. Look, I don't mean to take any shots against anybody here, but the Cowboys are a great way to kind of look at how the NFL views a lot of teams, right? So as an example, if you look a little bit further down that list, the Detroit Lions, they got promoted, right? They're like, they're like a Premier League team that's back in the Premier League, right? The Lions now get to play in the afternoon, whereas the Saints, the NFL is telling us we do not believe the Saints are that good of a team. We're going to put them at noon. We're going to burn one of the Cowboys noon games on the Saints. So sorry to our friends in New Orleans and the surrounding area. The Baltimore Ravens that early, I actually kind of like that of the first three games here, two of them are against opposing conference teams. And if you're unaware, because I know that not everybody is deeply familiar with the tie-breaking procedures in the NFL and blah blah blah. If you told me the Cowboys have to lose 5 games this year, if you said that the RJ have come back from the future, 88 miles per hour, 1.21 gigawatts, and the Cowboys lost 5 games, which 5 do you hope they were? I hope they were the 5 AFC teams that they played against. All right, the AFC North and the Houston Texans. Those are the 5 AFC games the Cowboys will play. Those mean the least relative to all tiebreakers because the Cowboys are an NFC team. The games that mean the most are obviously within your division, and outside of that, the conference games. So if you told me that the Cowboys had to lose 5 games, I would say I hope that they are to the AFC teams that they play. And why am I saying that? Because sometimes it takes a little while to kind of stabilize things as a season is beginning. And so we don't know if the Cowboys are going to have to knock off any sort of rust or whatever the case may be. So that being said, I like starting of the first 3 games. I like that 2 of them are against AFC teams, even though the Browns and the Ravens, obviously very talented teams, both playoff teams a year ago. The Ravens obviously have the reigning MVP, 2-time MVP in Lamar Jackson, but I like getting your feet wet in games with less or fewer consequences, if that makes sense. But this was strange. Getting to week 4 here, the Cowboys visiting the New York Giants on Thursday Night Football on September 26th. Wow. What if you take away anything from this. If there is one thing I believe as a result of this fact, and this fact being this game and where it's scheduled, it's that Amazon is getting its money's worth. That Amazon has a bit of an influence now. That Amazon can say, "Hey, we're paying you all the money in the world because we have all the money in the world. So we want the Cowboys and we want them early in the season." The Cowboys. So if you're unfamiliar, let me take the schedule off for a second. And I've told you, I like this kind of stuff, which is why we're going to go a little bit long here today in this discussion if my dogs don't bark. That being said, Thursday Night Football became a thing in 2006. If you have followed the NFL for that long. And when it did, it was originally exclusively an NFL Network property because at the time, NFL Network was still this new thing. It was only 3 years old. And for a long time, it was just an NFL Network thing. That, the league ran into some problems with that. In fact, 1 year later, in week 17, the New England Patriots were also visiting the New York Giants, and they were going for a perfect regular season at the time. Of course, we all remember that, the 16-0 season. That game originally was supposed to be broadcasted only and exclusively on NFL Network, but the league made a decision to adjust that because of the historical significance of the game, blah, blah, blah. In the years since, we've seen the Thursday Night Football package pass hands many different times. It's gone to CBS, it's gone to Fox, it's gone to NBC. Obviously, a variety of places have tried to make it a thing. We've even seen their top number one broadcasting crews try to do Thursday and Sunday games, and ultimately it landed at Amazon. Okay, why does this matter? Well, since the dawn of Thursday Night Football in 2006, we had not seen the Cowboys have to play a road Thursday night game until 2 years ago. And what does that mean? Well, we know the Cowboys play every year on a Thursday, which is Thanksgiving Day, right? And we know that that game is a home game for the Cowboys, right? They always play at home on Thanksgiving Day, which is a Thursday, every single year. This is a point of contention for my good friend, Brandon Lee Gowden, and hopefully my still co-host of the NFC East Mixtape, if we can ever get that situation figured out. But Brandon used to argue that it was, and I think he had a fair point here, as much as it hurts me to say, he argued that it was unfair that the Cowboys never had to experience the challenge of being the road team on a Thursday game because obviously the travel involved is an entire day. The Thursday games are a condensed week as they are. That's obvious because you're playing on a Thursday as opposed to a Sunday. And when you have to travel, that takes up and absorbs a whole day of the entire process. And the Cowboys never had to do that in a literal sense. Now, we had seen over the last decade or so the league sometimes give the Cowboys a second Thursday game 7 days after Thanksgiving, right? You remember that. You obviously experienced that where the Cowboys play on Thanksgiving Day and then 7 days later. And that second Thursday game has often been on the road for the Cowboys, and that's their road Thursday game. And even though it is a condensed amount of action and a dangerous condensed amount of action relative to everything happening that quickly, it still was not a situation that called for the Cowboys to have the short week, obviously traveling for a Thursday night game until 2 years ago, as I mentioned. If you recall, late in the season, the penultimate week of the regular season in 2022, the Cowboys did have a second Thursday game, but it was not the week after Thanksgiving. They went to see the Josh Dobbs-led Tennessee Titans in the penultimate week of the regular season, as mentioned. That was a road Thursday night game with them coming off of I think it was a Saturday the week before. So it wasn't even a full, true, total experience the way BLG wanted it to be. That is no longer the case. We can no longer say that in any way, shape, or form. The Cowboys will be traveling after a home Sunday game against the Baltimore Ravens for a road Thursday game against the Giants in September. And again, even that second Thursday game, whenever the Cowboys had played it in the past, had not happened prior to Thanksgiving. In the past, the Cowboys' first Thursday game, and I'm talking just in the NFL Network era that we talked about since 2006 to now, we had not seen the Cowboys play a Thursday game earlier in the season than Thanksgiving Day. That is obviously no longer the case. But they will get a technically nice longer break. They still will play on a Sunday after 10 days later on the road against the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mentioned it. I went in 2016. That was in November. It was about 6 weeks later, maybe about 5 weeks later in the calendar. And it was one of the best trips I've ever taken. The weather was amazing. I've never been to Pittsburgh in October, but I imagine it's relatively similar. In fact, maybe a bit nicer if you don't like the cold. I cannot recommend this enough. If you are somebody who wants to do a road trip, Pittsburgh is amazing. That isn't a plug for any travel company or anything like that. But if if you're somebody who wants to do a road Cowboys game, Pittsburgh is by far my highest recommendation. I talked about the Lions getting promoted. They are no longer the team who the Cowboys, play at noon. They're no longer one of the noon games that the NFL burns for the Cowboys. This is obviously an intense game for Dallas because it's one of the more contending teams in the NFC, and it's the rematch of last year, the game that ended a bit controversially. Some would say Aiden Hutchinson said after the Lions beat the Rams in the wild card round that they wanted to play the Cowboys in the divisional round. Obviously, Dallas couldn't live up to their end of the bargain there, but either way, that game will be a lot of fun, and that kind of goes without saying. Something that's notable, by the way, if you look at the dates involved here, the ones I got right, not that Eagles game on the right side of your screen. So beginning week 4, Cowboys are on the road. That's week 4. Week 5, Cowboys are on the road. Week 6, they're at home. They're on their bye week 7. Then they're on their road the next 2 games, right? In week 8 and week 9. So the Cowboys will play 1 game at home in a 6-week stretch. Think about that. That is a 6-week stretch of time where there will only be a single game for the Dallas Cowboys, at least, at AT&T Stadium. That's wild. 3 home games in a row for the Cowboys, September 22nd, October 13th, and then all the way not until November 10th. Almost a full month goes by after the Lions game until the Eagles are in town for that game we talked about. That's just crazy that it worked out that way. This is probably the toughest stretch of the season for the Cowboys, beginning with week 4. And that is, obviously because it's a Thursday night game and the condensed nature of it all. And then the Steelers, even though it's an AFC team, it's a difficult place to play. You get the Lions, that's an NFC contender. The bye, then you go to daddy. You go to take on the 49ers, who own you. They absolutely own you. They live rent-free in your minds. There's no doubt about it. You better not talk about it the way you did last year. And while I'm happy from a competitive standpoint that it is on the other side of the bye, that theoretically gives the Cowboys an advantage. I actually haven't looked at the Niners schedule, so they may have a bye that week as well. But presuming they don't, while I like that, I actually kind of hate that, that we'll have to have an extra week to talk about the Niners game because they do own the Cowboys so badly. So that will be annoying. And there's no doubt about it. I mean, if I had to predict this right now, I'd predict that to be a loss. How can you? How can you predict the Cowboys to beat the 49ers right now? You can't with a straight face, at least in my mind. But if they do get whooped, they will have a chance to, establish balance of the force heading to Atlanta on November the 3rd. I've been to Atlanta in November as well for a Cowboys game. It's a great place to be. It's not Pittsburgh to me, but it is also a lot of fun. You got the College Football Hall of Fame. You got Chick-fil-A, CNN, all that stuff. You go do all the tours, whatever, everything that's Atlanta. Highly recommended as well. It's a beautiful stadium. I mean, if you want to see something really modern, I can definitely suggest, Mercedes-Benz Stadium. It's a stadium, right? In that regard. But so the Cowboys get out of that and they survive, but the rough stretch is still not over because they come home for a date with the Philadelphia Eagles. That is Sunday, November the 10th. And what is so interesting to me about this game is that it is on CBS. I don't know the figure off the top of my head, and I asked the aforementioned Brandon Lee Gowton, but the Cowboys and Eagles had played on at least one game every year on Sunday Night Football for like 15 years. So this is the first year. I got the date wrong, or the day of the week wrong, but not the network on the second Eagles game. The Cowboys and Eagles don't meet on Sunday Night Football this year. And the fact that Fox lost one of these games, granted, they got one, but I guess it was NBC that lost this. NBC did not get this Cowboys-Eagles game. It went to CBS instead. In fact, this is, for now at least, because these things can technically always change, although when it comes to the Cowboys, they really don't because nobody lets a Cowboys game out of their grasp. The Cowboys and Eagles on CBS is very interesting. I mean, and this is the only CBS game of the season for the Cowboys. This is the only time, at least, the way it's laid out, that we will see Jim Nantz, Tony Romo, and Tracy Wolfson. It is the only time. That is wild in my mind. And look, if you're CBS and you can only get one Cowboys game a year, you definitely want it to be Cowboys-Eagles at AT&T Stadium. So I suppose it worked out for them in that regard. I wanted to see the Cowboys play the Texans on Thanksgiving Day. Obviously not going to happen. They're hosting them, which is, the rules per the rotation. The Cowboys were due to host this team. It's on Monday Night Football. That is cool. That is very cool. If it can't be Thanksgiving Day, it deserves to be an island game. It deserves to be something that the whole world gets to watch kind of on its own. This is one of 2 Monday night games at AT&T Stadium specifically. The other one obviously being the Bengals, which is a home game for Dallas as well. You got Dak, you got Stroud, you got the Diggs brothers. I mean, this is just going to be incredible. I'm very, very excited about this. So good for Dallas. But okay. Let's move on. The Cowboys will visit the Commanders on November the 24th. That's going to be a lot of fun. Obviously, et cetera, et cetera. Dan Quinn, I mean, whatever, but it's a noon kick, and it allows the Cowboys to get home very early, or earlier than usual, as early as possible for a road game, at least, for their Thanksgiving Day turnaround. Now, something that is notable here, everybody loves to complain about the run that the Cowboys go on when they play Sunday to Thursday on Thanksgiving Day. Everybody does that. But the fact that the Cowboys go Monday, November 18th to November 24th to November 28th, that is one fewer day, right? That's tough that the Monday night game is right there. The 2 weeks, 2 NFL weeks before the Thanksgiving Day game against the Giants. By the way, I didn't want to see the Giants on Thanksgiving Day. I just, it's not for me. It's too boring. It's too. By the way, also Thanksgiving takes place in Week 13 this year, as far as the NFL calendar is concerned. This is the first time since 2019. Every year since, it had been in Week 12, so it's 1 week later as far as how the NFL works. Thanksgiving this year, but Cowboys Giants, fine. That is tough, by the way, though, to play 2 divisional games, one on the road against a team that's going to be better in the Commanders on a Sunday and a Thursday. Bear, we're 20 minutes into this, Bear. We can make it. Everybody, the mail is here. We're going to survive. We can do this. Go, mail truck. Go. Go, mail truck. Go. Great job. All right, let's get through this. Giants on Thanksgiving Day. He couldn't do it. He couldn't make it the whole video. Honey's been a good girl, but Bear, we know. Okay, we know there better be something good in the mail. Okay, let's go to Monday Night Football, second Monday night game. The Cowboys will get that little extra break, like I said, following Thanksgiving Day against the Giants to stay home rather and host the Cincinnati Bengals. Dak, Burrow. The last time, obviously, the Bengals were in town in 2022. That was week 2. Remember, we thought the Cowboys season was over, and Cooper Rush rallied, and it was the beginning of something wonderful. Shout out to Cooper Rush forever for all that. But hopefully we get to see Dak Prescott take on Joe Burrow. We all deserve that as NFL fans. Then 1 week later, or not even 1 week later, 6 days later, another short week for the Cowboys. Technically, Dallas will be in Carolina to take on the Panthers. That's a noon kick. Blah, they stink. Then the Cowboys host the Buccaneers on Sunday Night Football. Again, that is the third straight primetime game for the Cowboys at home at that point in time, if that makes sense. So I'm just looking at primetime games specifically. Texans is at home, Bengals is at home, Buccaneers is at home. The first few primetime games, first 3 primetime games actually for Dallas are on the road. They go to New York on that Thursday night game. They go to Pittsburgh. They go to San Francisco. Then their road primetime games are out of the way. The final 3 are at home. The Cowboys have 6, tied for the most in the NFL with the 49ers and the New York Jets, because the NFL can't get enough Aaron Rodgers for whatever reason. Cowboys go back on the road on Sunday, December 29th. Man, I'm so mad. I'm more mad about that than I am about bear barking, if I'm being honest with you. But Sunday, December 29th, Dallas and Philly, the penultimate game of the regular season, afternoon kick on Fox. It'll be epic, obviously. And then January 4th or 5th, they return home to host the Washington Commanders. This is the first time I've mentioned since whatever different things. First time since 2019 that Dallas has finished a season at home. Every year for the last 4 years has been a regular season finale on the road for Dallas. That one, 2019, was also against Washington. Deep breath, especially because the mail truck's on its way back. I really like the schedule. In fact, as I put it up one more time here, look, you could talk about advantages, disadvantages, whatever. Look at that final column. All right, that final column is Thanksgiving on. It's the final 6 weeks of the regular season, obviously. Only 2 of those games are on the road, and one of them is against literally the worst team in the NFL last year, in the Carolina Panthers. The other is against a very good team. I'm not trying to, overlook the Eagles. Don't get me wrong, and I'm still mad about this graphic. But it's a team the Cowboys know very well, right? And a team that Dak Prescott has played very well against, right? So I certainly would never call anything like this soft, but it's a very soft ending to the schedule. It's a very preferable end of the schedule for the regular season. And so in that sense, I'm very happy with the way the cards kind of fell. And I like the beginning of the season, like I said, with the AFC teams. Some of the stuff is interesting and quirky, like the Thursday night game with the Giants, whatever. But all told, I'm quite pleased. So yeah, schedule rules. I thought this was interesting. Let's put this up on the screen. Shout out to Ben Baldwin, good friend of Blogging the Boys. Ben does just an amazing job with everything. These are, you can read, obviously, 2024 market-derived team tiers. So what you're looking at here is the way the betting market, DraftKings specifically, views these teams. If you can't read that font at the bottom, you can obviously pause it and look, but it says number shows how many points a team would be favored against a league average opponent on a neutral field. This is based on DraftKings now has odds for every single game of the season. Now the schedule is out. The Cowboys did open as 1-point underdogs for their week 1 game against the Browns. But that being said, based on all this data, you can kind of churn out what Ben did here. And the Cowboys, the cute little names on the side are Ben's work, but obviously the Niners, the Chiefs, and the Ravens are among the very, very best teams in the NFL. But then you've got the Bengals, the Lions, the Bills, and the Cowboys right there. The Cowboys coming in as number 7, behind only 2 NFC teams, obviously, in the Niners and the Lions, the 2 who played in the NFC Championship game. Bear, we can do it. We can survive. We can make it through. All right. This is cool. I'll do a write-up on this subject as well, blogging the boys over the weekend, along with the schedule wallpapers. I told you that those would be out this weekend. It's a lot of work, the 2024 NFL and Dallas Cowboys schedule, it turns out. If you haven't yet, please consider subscribing here to the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel. We have a lot of fun. I have a lot of fun talking about the Dallas Cowboys. My name is RJ Ochoa. In case you didn't know, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, or Threads at RJ Ochoa, or on TikTok at RJ.Ochoa. I'm going to do my very best to get out of here before the mail truck comes back around and bear barks again. I love the schedule. I would love to hear your thoughts on it all. You know where to find me. Have just the best day ever, everybody. Have the greatest day of all time. I mean, I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day, because you deserve it. Thanks so much for hanging out, everybody. See you next time.